as the rain and the snow. In peace, come to me, all you who thirst, come and drink the living water. Let those without money still purchase and drink. Listen carefully to me, that your soul may live forever. Your soul will delight in what I have to give. As the rain and the snow falls down from the heavens and waters the earth and sea, so the words of my mouth will not return empty, but do what I purpose and lead you in peace. Oh, that we might know the Lord, let us follow through to know Him. He'll come like the spring rains that water the earth, as the rain and the snow falls down from the heavens and waters the earth and seed. So the words of my mouth will not return empty, but do what I purpose and lead you in peace. Seek the Lord while He is near. Call on Him and He'll have mercy. His thoughts are not your thoughts, His ways not like yours. Call on Him while He is near, for He said He'll freely pardon. Sinner, turn from your ways, turn toward me, as the rain and the snow falls down from the heavens and waters the earth and seed. So the words of my mouth will not return empty, but do what I purpose and lead you to me.
In a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's Tuesday, the 18th of August, year of our Lord 2026. And as a Tuesday, today is a GOP primary in Florida. And what bears watching, I think, is the race against Randy Fine, one of the most vile traitors to America in Congress. This guy deserves the Jonathan Pollard Award. But he is doing something against his opponent that is really, truly amazing. The projection, the hypocrisy. And we're going to take a look at how Trump is not just destroying the logistics of the Navy and the aircraft carrier there. We're going to talk about what's happened with that, a gradual erosion, and it's not all Trump, but of course, Hegseth is going to defend the institution, not the sailors. But Trump is also working on destroying our strategic petroleum reserve. And why? For Israel's farcical war. And we'll take a look at how Trump's failures in statism and his corruption are paving the way for socialists. And of course, they've got a guy who just kicked off his campaign yesterday, Jon Ossoff. We're going to talk about him. He's very smart, clever, articulate, and dangerous. John Birch Society Freedom Index gave him 5 out of 100. We'll be right back. Yeah, Trump's incoherence turns the guns on a loyal ally. So this is the latest twist in Trump's desperation. Now he is threatening to bomb Oman. Now, Oman has been a U.S. ally for a very long time. They've tried to operate as a mediator, but because they were working on an agreement, again, they are the southern side of the Strait of Hormuz, that narrow point there that is only 21 miles wide. And they have been working with Iran to try to get the Strait of Hormuz open. Let's come up with some kind of an agreement. You don't always have to get every single thing that you want. That kind of absolutism is the path to war and destruction. But that is the path that Trump has us on. And so, as this article from Raw Story says, Trump's war has spiraled so far off the rails that he's now turning fire on America's own friends. The latest target, Oman, a venerable regional ally that has quietly stepped in to broker peace, opening talks with Iran over a toll system for ships stranded by the Strait of Hormuz standoff. Trump's response was not gratitude. He threatened to bomb them. He said, if Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the blank out of them, right? A stunning vow to attack a partner that was trying to clean up his mess. That's exactly right. It is his mess. He was the one they keep talking about. We're going to have a big victory. We're going to get Strait of Hormuz open. That's not a victory. That was the state of things before you started your farcical war. And it was his own CIA chief who called it a farcical war. David Graham, a staff writer for The Atlantic, argued that Trump's about-face against a U.S. ally was understandable, but no less shocking. He said throughout Trump's 2 terms, many analysts have sought to discern some sort of guiding principle to his foreign policy. See, even the left thinks that he's got a plan. Let me just tell you, his plan is to create chaos. His plan is to line his pockets with money. End of story. That is the plan. And if you think that there's a plan, you're going to be fooled here. He said the incoherence of his actions in the past week alone should provide further evidence that looking for a framework is futile. That's right. This outburst, he said, is the product of a foreign policy that no longer holds together. One day, the war's mission is stopping Iran's bomb. The next, it is cheaper gas at the pump. Trump insisted this weekend that the number one goal is and always will be that Iran cannot have in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon, even as his own vice president reportedly countered that lowering fuel prices is goal number one. Well, that would be what you would do if you wanted to put America first. That is not what Trump does. He puts Netanyahu first. Now, the whiplash keeps coming. Trump vowed to declare the Strait of Hormuz a territory of the United States, contradicting his own Secretary of State, Rubio. Tehran mocked the claim, scoffing that the waterway cannot be seized with a tweet. But hey, what if he adds a really great meme showing him as some superhero or god or founding father? I guess that would do it, right? Meanwhile, Trump snubbed South Korea while gushing over North Korea's Kim Jong-un, a dictator whose nuclear program has never slowed. Trump loves Kim Jong-un. He talks about how, we've always had a great rapport and all the rest of the stuff. And he's working to give Saudi Arabia the bomb. Now, remember, The official story, which I don't believe, the official story is that Saudi Arabia did 9/11. So let's give them a nuclear bomb. None of this stuff holds together. It's like the absurd contradictions inherent in all the COVID lockdown stuff. But we do know that Saudi Arabia is an evil regime. It's authoritarian. I mean, they chop their opponents into pieces and do so with immunity. And so it's not about finding any good guys abroad that we need to cheer. It should be about not having entangling alliances. And it should be about not allowing these ruthless people to have nuclear bombs, I guess. But of course, that is not what Trump is doing. He's going to take the entire world into a global war and a global depression to stop Iran from having a bomb while he lets North Korea have one, while he provides the framework for the Saudis to have one. You know, the left foolishly thinks that there's a plan. I think there is a plan. I think he was put in place as the guy to accelerate us into this fourth turning. And he's doing a great job of that, whether that's his intention or not. I think it is his intention. So Trump threatens to bomb Oman if it gets in the way. It's not very clear as to what that even means, right? But this was a reporter for Fox said the U.S. president made the threat to Oman while using an expletive during the phone interview. Earlier in the day, Iranian officials said they were close to finalizing a deal with Oman. The future of talks between the U.S. and Iran is unclear as the 60-day memorandum of understanding between the two sides expired yesterday. So as that MOU expired with nothing happening with it, and of course, we said from the very beginning that this was going to just be a stalling tactic. All the negotiations from the United States are simply stalling tactics. We operate exactly like the Zionists do. Because we are a Zionist-occupied government, we have peace talks just so that we can sneak attack you. But that's we saw that coming. They saw that coming as well. And so we can't have the Strait of Hormuz open up, can we? Right? Not a chance. Hormuz opens, not show, as the people on Wall Street said. And constantly talking about Trump's back and forth vacillation, capricious changing of direction. Trump always changes, or chickens out, I should say. He always changes his objectives. But taco and nacho, we wind up not being able to afford a burrito. On Monday, Trump was asked by the BBC News if he was seeking an extension to the MOU, which he replied, no. See, Israel does not want peace, therefore Trump does not want peace. Israel wants global chaos, especially in the Gulf. So Trump wants global chaos, especially in the Gulf. Oman borders the southern side of the strait, said it is a neutral country in this conflict. They have also suffered a number of strikes from Iran. They're now playing a key role in negotiating with Tehran to reopen the waterway. If Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the crap out of them. But he doesn't use the word crap. It's not clear what Trump thinks would constitute getting in the way. During the same interview with Fox, Trump also said the U.S. had a direct back channel to the Islamic Guard, which the Islamic Guard spokesman denied. So who are you going to believe? Well, quite frankly, at this point, I don't think Trump has any credibility. So I would lean toward believing Iran. Spokesperson told semi-official Iranian news agency, there are no talks taking place between IRGC officials and the Americans, and this lie by Trump is merely fantasies caused by delusions and nightmares that he has suffered as a result of defeat and desperation in the war. Well, I'd say that's pretty close to accurate. They're definitely trolling him, but it is Trump's delusions. It's not Trump derangement syndrome, it's Trump's delusion syndrome. Trump made his threat to Oman a few hours after Iran said the two countries had reached an agreement for ships to travel through the strait. So, just to summarize, the supposed memorandum of understanding, which clearly the U.S. was publicly editing without the agreement from the other side. You saw J.D. Vance saying, yeah, well, we're not going to give them money, but yeah, there is some money that's in there, but that's going to be private money. We're putting together big fund for reparations. Then he says, and of the money that we give them, they're going to have to buy food from American farmers. That's a condition. It was not a condition there. And so they've been changing this thing as they go along. So the MOU dies. There's no agreement to try to achieve peace. However, Oman steps in and comes to an agreement with them to open up the Strait of Hormuz. At which point, then, Trump threatens to ban our long-term ally, Oman. That's the desperate state of affairs that we're in with this idiot, this criminal, this corrupt criminal. Earlier this month, the Iranian Foreign Minister, Araghchi, said a full reopening was dependent on Iran receiving compensation. And they said that not getting compensation was a violation of the MOU. And they're actually right. If you read we can all read the agreement. You don't have to take what Trump or Vance says for it. Reuters, citing an Iranian official, previously reported that Tehran was seeking fees between 5 and 7% of the price of cargoes from vessels who traveled through the strait. Maybe we should get Iran to run the IRS for us. The IRS takes a much bigger bite than that, don't they? We can have the Iranian Revenue Service instead of the Internal Revenue Service. But this is what I thought was really interesting. Trump said, well, they're not good poker players. This from a guy who ran a half dozen casinos into bankruptcy. Is Trump a good poker player? Does he know a good poker player when he sees one, for example? Or would he maybe not want to have that guy playing in his casino? He said, I have no time schedule. Think about that. He has no time schedule. I'm not in a hurry. I've got no time schedule. I've got no objectives. I'm just doing what Netanyahu tells me. And Netanyahu just wants to run this thing out as long as possible. We got to have chaos and war. That serves the people like Netanyahu, the Zionists who are there. And so when he says, I'm not in a hurry, what do you think the people on the USS Lincoln think about that? You know, he just said yesterday, well, hey, you're there, but you haven't been there long enough, right?
Okay, what else do I have to say?
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Has the deployment's gone on too long?
No. Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everybody.
Not nearly long enough. Wasn't this a war that's only going to take 3 or 4 weeks? Here we are with the aircraft carrier, 8 months. Not long enough. No, they need to stay there longer. And when you look at these comments, I have no time schedule. All these Zionist apologists like Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, who are telling us this is not a quagmire. Folks, Trump wants a quagmire. That's the only game that he's got left. He thinks that running the clock is to his advantage. It is not to his advantage. It's not to the advantage of the American empire, if we want to put it that way. It may be to his advantage if, as I said before, he wants to kick off a global depression and a global war, then it is to his advantage. So we have the threat to Oman. We have the Iran agreement expiring. The 60-day deadline is now passed. And, of course, the main priority is we've got to do whatever Netanyahu says. And Netanyahu's had this delusion about Iranian nuclear weapons now for 35 years, always 2 weeks away, I should say. And then he's undercutting his advisors who are telling him, you got to get the oil prices low because maybe some of them want to continue to run for office. Trump's done. He really doesn't care. Then you got Jared Kushner meeting with longtime family friend. When I say family, I'm talking about a crime family like a mafia, the Kushners. His criminal father who was convicted and then pardoned by Donald Trump. And that was the kind of family that when Netanyahu would come to New York, he would stay with the Kushners. He would actually sleep in Jared's bed, presumably not both of them at the same time, but they are now in bed together politically. And so Jared pretended to have negotiations with Hamas from Gaza. And then he comes out and he says, well, I don't know. I think we're going to have to finish the job. We're going to watch what they do very carefully. And so he and Netanyahu are going to be finishing the job in Gaza. And we all know what that job is. It's called genocide. And nothing was mentioned about the Lebanon war, not by Kushner, not by Netanyahu, while Israel is threatening the return of the Lebanon war as they had the deadliest escalation since fighting largely came to a halt earlier this year. 11 Lebanese were killed, among them 3 children, 19 injured after Israeli warplanes bombed several areas. For example, they bomb a home on the outskirts of a village, killing 7 people in the home. Yeah, this is what they do. This is what war criminals and people who are committing genocide do. They bomb civilian homes. Then they went to another town and, wait for it, they bombed another home. That's right. Killing 2, wounding 9, covering the streets in rubble and smoke. An Israeli drone also targeted a motorcycle in the nearby city of Nabatea, but it was unclear if the driver was killed. Unclear who the driver was. Lebanon's national news agency said the Israeli enemy committed a massacre in the southern town of Ansar at dawn today, resulting in 7 deaths and 3 wounded. And of course, they call them martyrs, right? Let's just understand, when we talk about martyrs, this is the Islamic term for somebody who dies in war against the people they hate. And let me just say, I'm not siding with the Muslims. If you look at the pronouncements of people who have come to the U.S. as Muslims, and you look at the people who are Israeli Zionists here, they both want to kill us all. They both want to set up their system here. So we're stuck in the middle. We got radical jihadis on the left of us, and we got the radical revisionist Zionist on the right. They all want to kill us and set up a global governance that's there.
Stuck in the middle with Jews.
That's where we are. That's good, Travis. Yeah. So when they talk about martyrs, understand where that term originally came from. That was the Greek term for witness. These are people who were Christians, who were killed because they were witnesses to what Christ had done, and they would not deny it under penalty of death. And that is one of the very strong points behind the veracity of the Bible. And again, cold case Christianity, the guy J. Warner Wallace that I've talked to many times, he said as a cold case detective, when you go back and you look at what somebody says under threat of death, or what they say even on their deathbed, that has a lot of weight as testimony. That's what martyrs really meant. And this is how both Muslims and Jews twist the truth into their own hateful, warlike religions. Israel may have been acting related to reports of Hezbollah attacks on IDF troops early Saturday, in which 3 soldiers were wounded. So, therefore, you would attack civilians. And that's basically what Ben-Gvir has said. He said, you kill one of us, we kill, not Ben-Gvir, it was a lawyer who was interviewed by, I think it was the BBC. It was a lawyer for the Israeli, quote-unquote, settlers. Well, we've settled what they are. They're just mass murderers. And so what he said was, they killed one of our guys. So we're not going to try to find who the killer is. This guy was a lawyer. He's not interested in due process or a trial. No. This is the tactic that has always been used by authoritarian, totalitarian, murdering regimes, like the Nazis. You know, the Nazis, somebody goes in and they take out a Nazi leader, assassination or something like that. And what they would do is they would wipe out everyone in the village, or at least all the men in the village. This is what Israel has done. They learned the lesson really well from the Nazis. They are the Nazis that we have today. Trump has doubled down on plans to make Hormuz Strait a U.S. territory. He says that's a great idea. Now, he just condemned this a few days earlier, saying that it's international territory. It can't belong to them. And again, I think that's pretty much a gray area. It's not the only time, wouldn't be the only time that somebody has charged to pass through a natural strait as if it was a canal that they had built, like the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal or something like that. So that has happened in several different places. And this is only 21 miles wide. As I said, we declare 200 miles into the ocean as our border. And so I don't see that as being such a sticking point that we need to continue a war over it. But Trump does. And he foolishly says that he's won this war and he's going to make it a U.S. territory. I guess after that, we'll get Greenland, right? Oil spikes as the Hormuz developments continue from bad to bad. Iran is shifting from defensive, they said, to fully offensive. What does that mean? What does that mean when they go on offense? Are they going to do that there in the Gulf area? Or will it be some kind of asymmetric warfare here in America? I'm going to tell you later on why I think the latter is the case. If we look at what is happening with Ukraine and Russia, when you look at the strategies that our quote-unquote ally, the Khazars of Ukraine, are doing in Russia, going after infrastructure, now going after the retail trade. They're going after Russia's equivalents to Amazon, and it is a huge part of the Russian economy to take out these Amazon-like warehouses that are happening there. We are so vulnerable in the same way, perhaps even more so. So Trump has encouraged Americans to see higher prices as a, quote, very small tax in exchange for making sure that Iran doesn't get nuclear weapons. It's another very small tax. It's not a small tax. It is a VAT tax. It runs through everything. Ryan with For the Love of the Road said he expects to see, he was talking about how expensive, he's a trucker, how expensive diesel fuel is. I think he said they're going to go over $6 a gallon in many places very soon. I think that was the figure. I don't have it in front of me here. But Trump administration is very lucky that oil prices have not ballooned because countries around the world have taken measures to try to absorb the shock. There are also still ships that are getting through the strait, perhaps by turning off their transponders and passing through undetected. Yeah, but it's only about 10% of the ships that are going through. It's kind of interesting, as Mediaite points out, you now have Fox News and MS Now agreeing that Trump is lying, that he is not in total control of Hormuz. As a matter of fact, Bret Baier on Fox News stood in front of a map of the strait, and he said total oil flow averaged nearly 21 million barrels per day in the first half of last year, equivalent to about 20% of global petroleum liquid consumption. Usually about 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas trade moves through there as well. Despite Trump claiming total control over the strait, traffic has slowed, really to a trickle if you look at this. He said before the conflict, more than 100 vessels a day were crossing. Figures I saw were more like 130 a day. Monday, that was last Monday, 8 vessels crossed. A week ago yesterday, 14. So when you look at when we talk about something being decimated, right? When the Romans would decimate their army, they would come in for disciplinary action. They might kill 1 out of 10 soldiers for some kind of, for running away from the battle or something like that. But we're not talking about that. Instead, we're talking about getting rid of everything but 10%. What do we call that? Is there a word for that? I mean, decimated is when you lose 10%. When you lose 90%, what do you call that? Decimalized? You just move the decimal point 1 mark to the right. You now got 10% left, not 10% taken away. And so he said, what is happening is we see all these people trying to adjust to the energy crisis, raising their prices, releasing strategic petroleum reserves. And we're going to talk about the danger and what Trump's plan is with that. But then you got MS Now, Jen Psaki. I finally found something I agree with Jen Psaki on. I got to circle back and listen to her again, right? She delivered a scathing takedown of Trump's claim, basically saying the same thing that Bret Baier was saying at Fox News. But going a little bit further, she said to flat out say the Iranian government is now a more trustworthy source of the state of the war than Trump. She said Trump is repeatedly having to confront tough, embarrassing, and exhaustingly stubborn realities as his war of choice drags on. His war against the truth continues online this morning when he says we have total control of the Strait of Hormuz. She said we neither control the Strait of Hormuz nor are we in any kind of a position to keep it. That's the reality. Iran is not decimated, nor are they fleeing. The claims and repeated posts do not change reality. You're better off listening to Iran than the American president right now. Let me tell you, Iran has been the purveyor of disinformation often throughout recent history. but they're better at telling the truth right now than Trump. Psaki, like Bear, went on to say, to discuss reporting about the decrease in ship traffic through the strait. She said vessel traffic set at a 5-day average of around 13, nearly the lowest level since May the 12th. And so with traffic down 90%, it's not, Iran has not been decimated. Oil production has been decimalized. And so here's the reality, what is really concerning. We've seen the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Many other countries have drawn down the reserves. And what does this really mean? You got a threshold that we're at right now, frankly, that many of the petroleum experts are saying. And if we go below that threshold, what happens, and I didn't realize this before they were talking about this, we've got the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is not in above ground tanks. It is in salt caverns in various states. And of course, as they've said, it is never empty. It is always full. The question is, what is it full with? They pump in salt water and they pump in oil. And so as they take the oil out of the top, because of course oil and water don't mix, the oil floats on the top. As they take the oil out, they pump in more salt water. Except if you do rapid drawdowns of hundreds of millions of barrels all at once, you don't have enough brine to put in there. So you put in regular water, which is very corrosive to the salt mines, right? The salt caverns. It makes them dissolve. And it makes them dissolve, of course, from the bottom up, which is a big problem for the structure. Because down at the bottom is where the water is going to be. The oil is going to be up on top. And there's a limit beyond which they cannot go, or they start pulling in salt water into their pumps and damaging them, pulling in salt water rather than oil. And so we're at the point now where if they go much lower, that damage may cause the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to completely collapse. I mean, lose all of it. And so again, there are 60 of these caverns that are thousands of feet underground in 4 major sites along the Gulf Coast in Louisiana and Texas. Who knew that there were salt caverns there? I didn't know that. As a matter of fact, when we went to Salzburg, which of course means Salt City, with the kids, and back in 2001, we went down into the salt mines, and it was, it was actually pretty cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah, it was reminiscent. I wouldn't want to work down there, but you wouldn't want to work in the salt mine, but it was kind of cool because the way the guys would go to work in the morning, it was like going down a very, very long, polished stair rail, right? It's a big, wide stair rail, and they just sat on this thing and slide down in the morning. But at the end of the day, after they've been working in the salt mines all day, they've got to slog it out of there on foot. There's no elevator to take them out. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening with Strategic Petroleum Reserves. We're going to take a real quick break here at the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back.
using free speech to free minds. It's the David Knight Show.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, we're just talking about the salt mines in Salzburg. And of course, I thought one of the most interesting things about it, which explained a lot of the socialist politics in Europe, the one who was profiting the most from the salt mines over there. And again, in those days, salt was a very, very valuable commodity. It was like gold. And the guy who was making all the money off of that was the bishop, archbishop, or whatever his title was, or cardinal. I don't know what his official title was. But he took this fortune and he built what you see in The Sound of Music when the kids go out for the day outing. Of course, there's always the joke, it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to wear today. Well, if I don't find some clothes, it's going to be curtains. Well, that's what she made for them. Anyway, as they're running around those gardens there, that palace there, the Mirabelle Palace, was something that was built by this prelate who gave it to his mistress. He was openly flaunting not only the luxury, but the adultery. Well, I guess he wasn't married, so it wasn't officially adultery, but having a mistress when he was supposed to be, let's just say single. I don't know. And so when you look at that kind of flaunting of wealth, I think we're back there now with Trump and his ballroom and Natalie Harp. This is the kind of corruption that pushes people into socialism, seeing that mistakenly as a answer to that kind of corruption, but it just breeds more corruption of its own and centralizes even more power. So what they're at right now, they said it's the critical level, many people agree, is around 300 million barrels. One guy was saying who worked for the Biden administration, his name is Amos Hochstein, a senior energy advisor to Biden, disputed what the Department of Energy under Trump was saying this week in terms of what is an acceptable level. He says, don't believe the people out there in government who are saying that the SPR can go down to 70 million barrels. That's nonsense. He said at that level, the reserve would be depleted to the point of never resurrecting it. Depleting the reserve below 300 million barrels risks damage to the caverns, as I explained before. So I don't know anyone who believes that we can go below 300. I know plenty of people who think we can't get near 300 because physically you will damage the caverns where the oil is stored. Nevertheless, Trump's Energy Department spokesperson said the caverns are always full. Well, that's true, but that's irrelevant to what we're talking about. And actually, what we're talking about is the ratio of oil and water that is filling them. And that is the very thing that is destructive. The Trump administration is proposing to go down, take out another 173 million barrels to go down to 243 million barrels. And so the people who are saying 300 is the limit, you should not go below that, they're saying, well, we're going to go down to less than 250 because we think we can go down to 70. We'll see what happens with this. But that is really kind of a metaphor for what Trump is doing to the country in general, isn't it? Texas A&M professor said the practical operational floor of the crude inventory is between 250 and 300 million barrels. And so Trump is planning to go below the lower figure of that, the operational floor. He's going to go down to 243. When the inventory drops below 300 million barrels, they lose the ability to pump oil at rapid speeds to address emergencies. And as I explained before, they have to start using fresh water instead of brine. And if it gets too low, they start pumping salt water out instead of oil that is on the top. So it was originally designed for 5 full drawdowns, but instead it has executed dozens of large and small releases over the past 40 years. And so this is a bipartisan issue. We've had a lot of presidents who have done this, but nobody has gone to the extreme that Trump is planning on going to draw it down to such a low level. The system was not designed for this many cycles. This kind of repeated injection of water and extraction of oil have caused severe cavern deformation. They've accelerated the rate of massive salt falls from the ceiling, significantly weakening the overall structural integrity of the aging reserve. And Trump doesn't care. Really doesn't care. I mean, we criticized Joe Biden for drawing down the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help him with an election campaign. He wasn't the first one to do it. But the right was criticizing him. Where's the criticism for Trump? Because he's going to draw it down to such a level that it's going to collapse, say many of the experts. Meanwhile, Kushner says Hamas said all the right things at the Board of Peace meeting, but the IDF is not going to leave until we think we've got every last weapon. And we are going to finish the job. And you know what that means? Genocide. The U.S. plan would transfer governance of the war-torn territory to, listen to this, a technocratic civilian government. This is the New York Post writing this. What is a technocratic civilian government? Well, it's going to be the billionaire Epstein class, right? That's what it's about. It's about creating chaos, total destruction of any area that they want, and then turn it over to the Epstein class to own and to build it. That's the plan throughout the Middle East. And quite frankly, I think that's the plan here in America as well. Is this what is happening in Gaza? Is it the true globalist Zionist plan for the entire world? I believe it is. We are very committed to the fact that we have a plan to rebuild Gaza, but we will not allow Gaza to be rebuilt until demilitarization occurs. And they don't mean getting the Israelis out of Gaza. They mean their fantasy of finding every last gun and knife. Israel retains its full right of self-defense. And of course, no one else has a right to self-defense either. Remember Gaza when you hear that phrase repeated over and over again. Self-defense for Israel means genocide for others. Kushner has been in a long relationship with Netanyahu, as I pointed out. They won't point this out in the New York Post. This is what they say. He's had a long relationship with Netanyahu, having brokered the 2020 Abraham Accords, through which Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, and the United Arab Emirates established diplomatic relations with the Jewish state. But of course, his relationship with Netanyahu is much longer and closer than the New York Post will tell you. It goes back to the fact that Netanyahu was a frequent visitor to the Kushner home, would sleep in Jared's bed when he was staying there. Again, to see this as the Abraham Accords, it's amazing to me to see how this Genesis 12 passage that is abused by people like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee, talking about Abraham. It was Abraham to Abraham that God said, "Those who bless you, I will bless, and those who curse you, I will curse." It wasn't about Israel. Israel did not exist. And when he talks about through your seed, all nations will be blessed, it is a person, a child, as some translations will put it. It's individual. And Paul stresses that significantly in Galatians. He said seed, not seeds. In other words, it's not through the multitude, the nation of Israel that was to come, that the world would be blessed, but through one man that would come, and that was Christ. And as Christ said, Abraham is not your father. Your father is the devil. And we can see it in what they do. So everyone will see that they're not genuine about peace, said Kushner. This is the purpose of the talks, to create the optics that they want, to do whatever they wish. Everyone will see they're not genuine about peace. No, of course, the Board of Peace is genuine, right? Trump is really about peace, isn't he? And then Israel will have a lot more support from the U.S. and others to go and finish the job in the appropriate way. That's the purpose of having this meeting with them, not to actually resolve anything, but just to create the right optics. Well, speaking of optics, the optics for the USS Lincoln aircraft carrier has been a nightmare for the Trump administration and for War Pete. I got this from a listener. He said, I've been following this. He said, as a 20-year veteran of the U.S. submarine force, followed by 15 years on government-contracted surface vessels that serve military sea lift command, I'm somewhat familiar with the situation they find themselves in. And I think from what he's saying there, I didn't look up the military sea lift command, but I think that is the kind of civilian corps that does the logistical resupply of these ships. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Systematic dismantling of the logistical support structure of the Navy is something that I was able to witness throughout the 90s. The assessment that he provides, talking about this one guy's YouTube video, is thorough and quite accurate. I'm not sure. I didn't look this up. I didn't see that in time, so I apologize to not watch that YouTube video. But I do have an excellent article that someone else had sent me about exactly what is going on and what they have done to essentially hollow out the logistical support of Navy ships. It is an institutional problem. And it is a problem that began before Hegseth, but he's not fixing it. Instead, he's covering up for it. This listener goes on to say, examples given of conditions such as moldy showers, non-functioning toilets, and other broken equipment would not be tolerated. Senior enlisted personnel see to it these items are rectified quickly. Well, that'd be the case if they have sufficient logistics. I mean, part of the logistics is not just food, but it's going to be spare parts. Maybe they don't have the parts to actually fix it. He said, as for the food, milk lasts only about a week after leaving port. Fresh fruit and vegetables are about a week to 10 days. Eggs can last for about a month. And then it all is down to frozen, canned, and powdered. When you get extended indefinitely, rationing can happen. We even ran out of toilet paper on one deployment. So the length of the deployment is a big issue, as well as the lack of purpose. You see, when we talked about the deployment, they've been at sea for 250 days, not being allowed to go to port. Typically, they go to port about every 30 to 45 days, but they've been out for 250 days. So he says, another issue is the lack of purpose. It is extremely difficult to keep your head in the game on such a long time with no endpoint in sight. And to not know what you're fighting for. That is a key thing, isn't it? Are you fighting for Israel? Are you fighting for Netanyahu's paranoid delusions? We never really expected politicians or top brass to care much about us anyway. As Kissinger said, we were simply dumb, stupid animals used as tools to implement foreign policy. And as the saying goes, a bitching sailor is a happy sailor. So, they really don't have any respect for their soldiers, in spite of what they'll say from time to time. Of course, Trump really hasn't gone out of his way to try to pretend that he has any respect for soldiers either, has he? This article is from Larry C. Johnson, his Substack, The Tale That Couldn't Keep Up: How the U.S. Navy Ran Its Own Sailors Short on Food and Soap. The images were mundane in a way that made them land harder than any battle footage. Half-empty meal trays, a gray slab of processed meat, sailors rationing food among themselves so that no one gets more than anyone else. In the spring and summer this year, the crews of the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln and the assault ship USS Tripoli contended with food shortages, long chow lines, broken toilets, mold in the showers, dead laundry machines, and shortages of basics like soap and toothpaste. The strain took a hold on morale, and in the worst case, on the safety of the crew. And yet we have Donald Trump telling us that it's not nearly long enough, right?
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Has the deployment's gone on too long? Are you worried
No. Not nearly long enough. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, not nearly long enough. And so what is he talking about? I mean, he knows that he's not winning the war, right? So is this saying, well, we got to stay longer so I can win the war? Is he saying we're going to have a quagmire here? Is he admitting that he's not winning? If it's not long enough, right? If he's won, then they've been there long enough and he can come home. But they're not there long enough, which means that he's not winning the war in spite of all the lies that he has publicly told and made himself the laughing stock of the entire world, friend and foe alike. The Navy's institutional reflex, of course, was denial. War Pete dismissed it all as fake news. His spokesperson said that they remain resilient and ready, and they remain capable, fully capable, of meeting all mission tasking. And this writer, Larry C. Johnson, says that is part of the failure. It's not a rebuttal of failure. That is the failure. The fact that they're more concerned about defending their institution and their readiness narrative than they are about fixing the problem. There's War Pete's administration in a nutshell. The question, he says, is why warships from the world's best funded Navy, we have the most expensive military in the world, they spare no expense, they conjure money out of thin air with a fiat currency, and they spare none of it give it to these people. Why can't they get this to work? What kind of incompetence is that? He says, well, it is structural and it's been building for 15 years. Exactly what the listener sent to me. He said, and a part of the fleet the public never sees, the ships that feed and fuel the fighting ships. Warships don't carry enough on their own to stay at sea indefinitely. What keeps the carrier strike group fed, fueled, and armed without having to go back to port is a dedicated fleet of supply ships called the Combat Logistics Force. He said it's mostly civilian crews. They steam alongside warships. They pass fuel, ammunition, food, and stores across on cables and hoses while both the ships continue to move. It's like the refueling of planes, jet planes that you see, right? You have the tankers and they refuel the jet planes, the same type of thing. The civilian logistical force comes in 3 flavors: fleet replenishment oilers for the fuel, dry cargo and ammunition ships, and that includes spare parts and food, and then the fast combat support ships, which are the premium asset that carries all of those things in one way or the other. And they're fast enough to travel inside of a carrier strike group rather than shuttling back and forth to it. The last category of the combat support ships is exactly the ship that you want when a single carrier is holding station in a distant sea for months at end. But that is the category that the Navy has gutted, he says. The Combat Logistics Force today numbers about 34 ships, a figure that stayed essentially flat for well over a decade. But in practice, there's been a slow hollowing out because they've taken out this premier ship, and they have grown the number of other ships. And so around 2010, the Navy operated all 4 of the supply class, operated 4 of its supply class fast combat support ships, but today it only has 2 remaining. And of course, the other part of this that he points out in this article is that when you're in the Arabian Sea, the area that they're operating there in the Gulf area, you're not close to really good ports anyway, like they have in the Mediterranean. So you are at the extreme end of a very long supply chain. And that's what the New York Times is pointing out in terms of the destruction of the Bahrain base and the fact that we had to abandon it because of the missile attacks from Iran. And so the supply chain got even longer with that, having to go to Diego Garcia to get a lot of supplies and bring them in. And so he says, so right now, they've hollowed this out. They're in the middle of transitioning to some other types of supply ships, but they're not online yet. And there's a new class of smaller replenishment ships that's not going to be deployed until the 2030s. So here we are, and you can't get this thing supplied. This is an institutional failure. And their reaction, as you saw with Warpeat, is to deny it. This is from the top down, the failure. When the margin is thin, the failures show up first in the least glamorous places, not in a missile that won't fire, but in a laundry that won't run, or a gallery that runs low on food. Food, soap, and clean water are the leading indicators of a sustainment system that's operating at its limit. And those indicators all went red. In this particular case, a crew that is worn down by more than 8 months at sea, short on the basics that make shipboard life tolerable, is a crew that is under strain that runs deeper than inconvenience. That's what we're seeing with the collapsing morale and the suicide. It is fair to say, that the fleet cannot ask its sailors to endure ever longer deployments while cutting the margin that keeps them fed and clean. It's not nearly long enough, though, says Trump, right? He doesn't know or care what is happening to the soldiers. And this is also Warpeat's problem. Again, the buck would stop with him, but he denies that it's even an issue. And this is an issue that is really far more important than the fact that they're out of many categories of missiles are getting dangerously low on those things. That was what Trump blew up with Warpeat at Camp David about. Does he even care about what is happening on the aircraft carrier? Apparently not. It's tempting to read what happened aboard the Lincoln as a story about one ship and one deployment. It was a symptom that was surfacing at the end of the supply chain. For 15 years, the U.S. kept its combat logistics force at roughly constant size while cutting its most capable replenishment ships, all while asking the fleet to sustain longer deployments in more distant and more contested waters. A force that is stretched that way doesn't fail at first. It fails quietly in the galley, in the shower, in the laundry, on ships that are operating at the far end of the longest supply line that the Navy has. The shortages were a predictable result of a decade and a half of decisions that let the margins preventing them erode. And so he says, the sailors there deserve better than both the shortage and the denial. It's one thing to fail. It's another thing to not even acknowledge the failure, because then we don't believe that he's going to do anything to fix it. But of course, War Pete cares more for himself. He doesn't want to be criticized. He has no care for the troops. And what would you expect from a moral reprobate like Pete Hegseth, who glories in the death and destruction, even of civilians, even of people who are shipwrecked? This guy is a moral reprobate. He is not fit to run anything, especially not this operation. So the irony of the commander and thief hiding in a food truck was not lost on many people as they came up with this meme here. Here he is surrounded by former presidents, and there's Trump in diapers hiding in a food cart. And yet the U.S. Navy can't get the food to the ships. Maybe Diaper Boy ate the food there. I don't know. The CIA, by the way, said that that was actually a fake threat that he was running from. Yeah, here's the paper here. CIA is blaming Israel for that made-up threat that left Trump hiding inside of a catering truck. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Yeah, well, it was the perfect setup for someone who is smart, articulate, and a hard left candidate. And I'm talking about Jon Ossoff. He was given a softball pitch by Donald Trump, and he hit it out of the park in terms of his criticism of Trump. Listen to this as he kicks off his presidential campaign.
And there's something uniquely despicable about lying a nation into war. Treating citizens as fools and those who serve as pawns. Aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, they've now been at sea for 240 plus days without a port call. It's a Navy record. And still they serve with excellence. And still they serve with excellence. God bless the sailors, Marines, aviators, and all aboard the United States ship Abraham Lincoln. See, they don't expect luxury. They'll endure hardship. But they deserve competent leaders who send them into combat only when necessary, and with decisive clarity of purpose, not fools who lie about the purpose and progress of war. And while the sailors on the Lincoln fight his war, while he fruitlessly drains our munitions and oil reserves, the president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Yeah, of course, that was all spot on, wasn't it? Look at the optics that he's got there. He's not wearing a coat. He's wearing a blue shirt. So he's blue collar, right? And I guess if he's hot enough, he could wear a short sleeve shirt, but he doesn't. He wears a blue long sleeve shirt that he's rolled up to look like he's a working class hero. What a fraud. He's the farthest thing from a working class hero. But he's very clever, and he knows how to do the optics, and he was spot on in his criticism of Trump. And when you look at what Trump is doing, I think he is just teeing this up for a Democrat in the same way he teed everything up for Biden with the pandemic lockdown. And of course, you heard Ossoff take a swipe at Trump's relationship with Natalie Harp, who he decided to take with him in the food truck. Leave the other people die. And who did he leave to die? I already talked about the fact that he left Marco Rubio on board. He also left Scott Bessent. And oh, by the way, he left Caroline Leavitt on board. Hot Lips was left on board. I guess she realized when she heard Trump come back and say, hey, if I go, you go. Maybe you should think about changing professions. Well, I guess she did think about it. Do I want to die for this jerk? It's one thing to lie for him continuously, day in and day out, but it's another thing to die for him. So she's left. She realizes that she is not on the short list like Natalie is. Natalie was one of just 3 aides who accompanied the president. And of course, nobody has seen Melania for over a month, certainly not traveling with Trump. Natalie Harp's estranged brother told the New York Times that his sister's relationship with Trump was, quote, very unhealthy, unquote. Claimed her devotion to the president extended to leaving him admiring personal notes. Among those was one that read, "You are all that matters to me." Yeah, she is diehard MAGA, isn't she? Well, Americans are falling into the socialist trap by blaming capitalism for the damages of statism. And let's just substitute here Trumpism, because Trumpism is statism. This is an article on Zero Hedge by David Lacal. He said Americans are falling in the socialist trap by not realizing that solving big government problems with an even bigger government is dangerous. Do you think MAGA might need to learn that lesson? Every time Trump identifies a problem to his base, what is the solution? More federal government, more concentration of power. Remove more guidelines so that I can act like a dictator. That is always his response, his supposed solution. As Daniel says, statism is the gradual replacement of civil society, market savings, and individual choice by political control, public spending, regulation, taxation, and monetary intervention. Boy, that is the Trump administration in a nutshell, isn't it? And of course, what would you expect from a guy who is a New York City Democrat? You would expect the most statist president in my lifetime, and of course, a fourth turning president as well. He goes on to say socialism markets itself well because people always judge the policies on the intentions and not on the disastrous results. Yeah, we'll have more about that when we return, but we're going to take a quick break here at the top of the hour, and we will be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Welcome back. And of course, the USS Abraham Lincoln is really, I think, a harbinger of what is coming to all of us because of the incompetence and the outright contempt with which Trump holds the American public and the economy free markets and individual choice. He has no respect whatsoever for the small guy. He has no respect for a free market. It's all about crony capitalism and his billionaire cronies. But we've got a lot of comments here I want to address here before we go further with this. Thank you, Stealth Patriot. Thank you for the tip. He says, there's a simple difference between those who left MAGA and those who stayed. One values things that Trump promised. The other group worshiped Trump and hates his enemies. That's right. And it has always been, and I criticize MAGA because to me, the connection between what he promised and what he did was pretty obvious going back to the middle of his first term. And so it's just like, okay, this guy is just another lying politician. He promises you that he's going to do A, B, C, and D, and he doesn't do any of those things. Then 2020 came. And at that point, I was like, this is the most treasonous, traitorous thing I've ever seen. And the people who cheered it along, like my employer at the time, Alex Jones, were absolutely despicable for pushing that psyop on people. Angelo, 1999 diesel local went from $4.69 to $5.50 yesterday, except for one station. Yeah, I think it was $6 that Ryan said it's creeping up on that really quickly. Defy Tyrants, 1776 says you can't invade another's property, kill them, rape them, shoot kids in the head, burn their homes down, and not expect for the victims to fight back. Oh, but it's only Israel that has a right to exist, right? Israel is an illegal occupier, and they are operating as a terrorist government. I absolutely agree. Thank you for the tip, DG8. He said, David, these people like Kushner, Levin, Ben Shapiro, and Bibi don't believe what the Bible says except for the land covenant and God's chosen people nonsense. They're all frauds. And again, the covenant was never, you have this land forever. He was basically saying that you have kind of a lease on this. He told them at the very beginning, if you don't follow me, I'm going to throw you off the land. And he did it more than once. And I think he's done it finally. And so what we see now is a usurpation. It is not something that God has given to them. This is a prayer request. Pray for Dugda 007 and her husband as they're adopting. Pray that it goes smoothly and quickly. They're still waiting for a match. Yes, we really do pray that God will bless you. And I just, let me offer you these words of encouragement. You know, when we look at the prayers that God is going to answer, and many times it is, I think we can pray with an extra confidence when it's something that we know that God likes, and God wants us to take care of widows and orphans, doesn't he? So we can ask with a lot of confidence that God will protect Dugda 007 and her husband as they're trying to adopt. That is something that God loves, and he rewards that.
We also want to say thank you to DG8 again, and also really good on you, Doug, as you know, I was adopted, so I'm especially invested in that, and I will be praying.
Yes.
And again, thank you, DG8. It says, David, what you are witnessing is the inefficiency of our military budget, not one more dime for the defense budget till they can justify $1.5 trillion budget. Cut the waste. It's a free-for-all.
Yeah, well, there wasn't any justification for $1 trillion budget either. Now after they broke that record, they immediately wanted to boost the record budget by another 50%. It's just out of control. There's absolutely no control. There's no auditing of it. It's just like the gold at Fort Knox. And what a disappointment Rand Paul has been. You know, when you look at what he says, well, I went to Fort Knox and folks, it's all there. You can't possibly know that. You're just lying to us. Did he go through with and spot check and assay the gold bars there to make sure that they're real? I mean, they could, for all he knows, they're gold painted bricks. He doesn't know that. And he didn't go through and count every single one of them. He didn't look at the quality of the things. It's all just a head fake. So disappointed in him. Yeah,
he assayed them. He said, I say they're real.
Yeah, whatever the asset says, right? That's an assay. He's misled us on the Fauci stuff, on gain of function, and so many different things. It's so disappointing to see him even double down on Fort Knox, which is there in Kentucky. Radisbro, thank you for the tip, says supplies are running low because they were supposed to be sunk already. For the boots on the ground, false flag. Military men are Dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns for foreign policy, said Kissinger. Yeah, that's right. And they know that. They know that Kissinger said that. It's just amazing to me to see the contempt. And quite frankly, I saw that as somebody who was closely watching the Vietnam War, figuring that I was going to get drafted into it. I watched that very closely, and I saw the contempt for American soldiers in that war. And no plan to win that, and complete mismanagement from the top. It was just disgusting. What a disgusting waste of life on both sides. And what a disgusting waste of money. They saw it as a weapons proving ground, quite frankly. And when I interviewed with Texas Instruments with some of the defense people there, that was the kind of stuff they were telling me. It's like, yeah, we'd use it as a lab. And that was really, really disappointing to see that. But of course, that is what a lot of these wars are really about. Denny Hildebrandt says, 494 executive orders. Can we get Congress involved? Just a little bit, maybe. Yeah. No, you're not going to get Congress involved. They're going to step aside. They're going to let the bureaucracy and the president's pen decide everything's going to happen. And of course, those executive orders, not just the quantity of them, but it's the quality of them. The fact that he increasingly defies the law and defies the Constitution, just like he's done on tariffs and so many other issues, like he's doing now with claiming that these special designated areas around the border are military bases. They're not. There's no buildings there. There's no troops staying there. But because they're military bases, because I call them a military base, now we're going to say that the military can arrest people. Well, let me tell you, it's not going to just be limited to the border. We've already seen how Trump wants to use the military in Washington, D.C. and other places. The Posse Comitatus Act is there for a reason. Before you remove guidelines, before you remove the markers and the prohibitions, you might want to ask yourself why they were there. Go back and look at the history, and you understand why they're there. Well, again, we talk about socialism and the fact that it presents itself as having good intentions, and they don't want people to look at the results. That also happens for all the politicians, for Trump especially. By the time the people realize the promise was a trap, the state is already too large, too powerful, and uses repression on the same people that it vowed to protect. Isn't that what we've seen with MAGA, what we've seen with the farmers and the tariffs? Now he's putting farmers out of business. Big government interventionism, money printing, high taxes. This has always obliterated the economy and demolished the opportunities for middle-class families and small businesses to thrive. Then we got the lockdowns of 2020, right? Trump is a statist extraordinaire. And the whole point of this article is to talk about how statism is the problem. This idea that there needs to be a federal law. There ought to be a law for this. And, we need to make a federal case out of everything. The government will fix everything. Trump will fix everything. That was a blank check for this guy to operate as a tyrant, to put out nearly 500 executive orders, because everybody put all their hope on him. They didn't want to do the hard work to find out who was running at local elections, or even to run for the local elections themselves. No, they thought everything could be fixed from the top down. Let's just put Trump in there and everything will be taken care of. Naive in the extreme. Yeah, Trump's purpose is to push us into even more direct statism. Let me just say, there isn't anything that a socialist is going to do that Trump hasn't already laid the foundation for and set the precedent for. He's out there buying stocks and setting up co-ownership between the government and corporations. That is textbook economic fascism, a merger of government and corporations. So he's got a chronic deficit. He's got high debt, rising taxes, monetary debasement, regulatory obstruction, political intervention, and he protects insiders while he penalizes new entrants. That is why so many billionaires support socialism. It's the perfect way to eliminate a merit-based system, obliterate your competition, and keep privileges provided by a political affiliation while demanding even more government control. Cronyism is a direct consequence of statism, and we have never seen the level of statism and cronyism that we have in Trumpism. Few people are richer, more powerful than socialist tyrants and their enablers. And that's what we have seen with Trump, isn't it? Look at the billions of dollars that he has made, and now he and his family are setting themselves up to be in a prime condition for becoming a bank, for pushing out crony corruption digital currency. So he writes here, socialism leads to hyperinflation and scarcity. Well, I would also say socialism and Trumpism leads to hyperinflation and scarcity because it ignores the economic calculation and uses the debasement of currency to expropriate the wealth created by the remains of the private sector and keep citizens dependent and submissive while the political leaders enjoy the perks of privilege. That is on display in the Trump administration like we have never seen before. By the time the people find out, they cannot escape. Americans are falling into this socialism trap, this Trump statism trap, when they should be blaming statism and not capitalism. And instead of capitalism, let's just talk about free markets. Socialism is the perfect ideology for elites because it wraps coercion in moral vanity. The cats promise free cheese to the mice who don't understand why it is free. And because the trap works because it sounds compassionate, because it promises security, fairness, and dignity and protection. This is what Jon Ossoff and his ilk are going to be selling you. And Trump has been the perfect setup for somebody exactly like Jon Ossoff. I said before that when you look at the rating from the John Birch Society, their Freedom Index, they go through and they give you the various bills as to what the Constitution would say about such and such a bill, and how you would vote if you're going to vote the Constitution, and then how this individual votes. And he has a lifetime average of 5%. 5 out of 100. That's about as low as you can go. As a matter of fact, it is a big improvement from where he was the first 2 Congresses that he served in. Because the first one, he got 0%. You ever seen anybody get 0% on a Freedom Index? The next one, he got 3%. Then he brought his average up by getting 13%. Now, what he's doing is he's pivoting to the middle, just a little bit, but he's getting his average up. This guy is a hardcore statist. I mean, he's even done things recently, like he's Jewish and he supports Israel, but he has pushed back against some of the genocide stuff, again, trying to move to the middle and get his credentials up. Just understand why he is there in the first place. If you remember in the 2020 election that Trump contested with his grift that he called Save America, he made hundreds of millions of dollars off of it, and Alex Jones made probably tens of millions of dollars off of Stop the Steal. And while they were all so bothered about what had happened in the election, under the new Trump rules of lockdown and vote by mail, we had a runoff election of 2 senators in Georgia at the same time. And that happened the day before January the 6th. I've talked about this many times. So on January the 5th, there was a runoff election in Georgia. Now, they had talked themselves blue in the face about how much there was corruption, all the problems that they had and so forth. Not a single thing was done in Georgia. And, all the people running Stop the Steal or Trump's Save America didn't want to focus on that at all. No, it was all about Trump. And so from these people's own perspective, if they think the Republican Party is going to fix things, which I don't have any faith in it anymore, but if they think the Republican Party is going to fix things, what they did was by focusing strictly on Trump and strictly on picking the pockets of their supporters, which is what Alex's Stop the Steal and Trump's Save America were all about. By doing that and ignoring what were probably some real problems in Georgia, you had 2 Democrats get elected. And that made the Senate 50-50, and it gave Lala Harris the deciding vote. So they turned over the Senate, and Jon Ossoff was part of that. So he owes his very existence in the Senate to Donald Trump. Now he is in a position to run against him, and I think he is probably going to do that and do it very effectively. And so when we look at what is happening to America, folks, I think that war is coming to America. I think that it's beyond even the police surveillance state. That absolutely is war. But I think there's something else that's coming. But before we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about the flock war against us. We've talked about the guy who was in Florida. Showed you the pictures of the older gentleman who was sitting in a lounge chair in Florida, and he's got a pole and he's got a sign that he held up in front of the flock camera, obscuring its view, and they had police cars all around there trying to figure out what they could charge him with and how they could arrest him. And the person who put the video up is filming him and yelling at him, "What's your name? I'm gonna bail you out when they take you to jail." He said, "Look, they're going to arrest this guy." Well, they didn't arrest him because he wasn't breaking any law. You can obstruct and block those things visually. You haven't done any damage to it. And so that is not something that is prohibited. And he is actually still at it. This is Carl the Flock Blocker.
I'm protesting this flock camera, taking pictures of everybody that comes by here and putting it in a file. I don't like being tracked.
I'm here in St. Pete with Carl, and you might have seen him on the internet because he is known as
the Flock Blocker.
The Flock Blocker. He is sitting with his sign, blocking flock cameras. It is hot out here, let me tell you, in the middle of the Florida sun, but he believes protesting against surveillance is very important.
I want to be free to go wherever I want to go in this country. I know that once I get out of this country, I don't have any rights. That's why I stay here. I'm very disappointed in our government to allow this to even start. We're going to go to council meetings. We're going to go to the state. And we're going to go to Washington with this. They're taking away our privacy. And that is one of our rights. When we protest, we want everybody to come out and join us.
That's right. Yeah, they didn't allow this to happen. They planned it, they financed it, they pushed it. And that's what I'm very disappointed in. People like Marsha Blackburn, who's doing that along with Trump. We had one resident speaking to the Auburn City Council. He had this to say.
Hello, everyone. My name is Derek. I'm from just outside the area. I came here, obviously, to talk about flock cameras because I feel like flock cameras are a little bit bigger than just, Auburn City Council. It's kind of a nationwide issue. So I saw the opportunity to coming here. It affects me. Something that people don't really think about or haven't really mentioned before is that, knowing that these flock cameras exist and wherever we go is tracked and monitored. I just don't go certain places like Auburn, for example. I don't come here, spend money here, or do anything here because of these flock cameras, and I know they're there. Every day, we're always facing all these different ways that we're being tracked, monitored, all our biometric data is being taken, sold, doing whatever, all these things that we have. All of our pockets are filled with, devices that have all these tracking things, but there's usually always some kind of silver bullet or way to go around that. There's a consent issue. You can opt out. At the very minimum, you can just not participate in those activities. You can go back to the way things were without technology. But with this flock scenario and this AI surveillance that has spread across the United States without anybody seeing it is creating a whole different system where we can't opt out of it. You can't go anywhere. You can't go places. And no one is secure as exactly what the information is being collected is. They don't know where it's going. They don't know who has access to it. I don't think even you know how it's being used. I don't think the police departments know how it's being used. The thing is, a lot of people have gotten up and they've talked about, all the bad things. We always know that they're bad because they've been, they've flagged the wrong person, they've stalked the wrong person, all these reasons. But there's a lot of legal reasons why they are bad as well, and we haven't talked about any of those. There's a few Supreme Court cases that basically make flock cameras completely illegal, and everybody should know them, especially council members that are going to be voting on this. You might want to get the.
Well, let me just sum this up for him. We're talking about moving beyond freedom and dignity. That was the title of B.F. Skinner's book. Behavioral psychology, talking about positive operating conditions and negative operating conditions. They've been using that as a playbook. As a matter of fact, first time I saw that was when Karen was in getting her master's degree in education. And so it was about time somebody complained about that. She says, no. This is their blueprint. You see, whenever we look at this and say, schools aren't working, how did the government get fooled by this corporation to put this stuff in? No. That was the plan. They don't want the schools to work. They don't want people to think critically. They don't want them to be educated about history or anything else. They want you dependent and dumbed down, and that is all deliberate. And one of the tactics that they do with that is to deny us our freedom and dignity. I couldn't believe the contempt that B.F. Skinner had for human freedom and human dignity. This is beyond freedom and dignity. That's why you should oppose it. And when we look at the things like Palantir, as I said yesterday, Madison warned us that means of defense abroad like Palantir will always, always, always be used as instruments of tyranny at home. And that is the way Palantir is being used now and will accelerate that as well. When he mentioned the police, of course, we have a lot of cops who are being told you need to hide the fact that you're using Flock when you pull people over. Don't put it in your official police reports. Don't put any of this stuff in, right? You just happened to come across these people. They've been playing this game, by the way, for a very long time with the Sting operations that they did. That was something sold by Harris Semiconductor out of Florida. And with that, they could basically track you and correlate your movements with cell phone issues and other ways like that, and do it without a warrant. That was the key issue. See, the government doesn't like warrants. The police don't like warrants. It makes their work harder. Yeah, that's the intention. We want to make your work harder. We don't want to make it easy for you to control us. It should be hard. And you shouldn't be focused on control. You should be focused on defense. But they missed that point. Meanwhile, you think that Trump is not on board with this? He was asked about Flock.
Mr. President, there's a lot of debate right now about these license plate scanners that are going up across the country. They're called Flock cameras. People are worried that the police might misuse them. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
What's your stance?
Well, it's being studied right now. You know, you have pros and cons, right? It's being studied right now. We'll have an answer sort of as to our views on it over the next couple of weeks.
Mr. President, yes.
Yeah, it's being studied right now. I don't have anything to tell you right now. It's kind of like the Mike Johnson report. Well, I haven't heard anything about that. I have to look into that and get back to you. Well, we do know that the Flock cameras have gone from 400 to 120,000 in just 3 years. Think about that. This rapidly metastasizing police state that is there. And of course, yesterday I showed you a picture of an app that Handy sent me. Of course, he's living right there in the heart of the beast in Atlanta, where this company began, where Flock began. And there are cameras all over the place, 5,000 of them. And there's an app there called Flock Hopper. And so it can give you directions as to where you're going, and just like any kind of phone app that's a map app. But it can also, you can choose to take me to New York City. Some people don't have to avoid the Flock cameras. Take a look at this. These are two pictures, right? And on the left, we have the blue dots, which is where the Flock cameras are. And they're all clustered around everything, except there's this one blank area. And some people said, what's the matter with that area? Why isn't that area being surveyed? Why is that not of interest? Well, it's not Central Park because they put these things on footpaths as well. They want to put them in the parking lots of gun stores. They want to put them on footpaths. They want to put them everywhere. No, if you look at the other map shows where the concentration of synagogues are there in the metropolitan area of New York. And it turns out that that's where they don't put the Flock cameras. As people have said, if you want to know who controls you, look who you're not allowed to criticize. You might also want to look at who you're not allowed to look at. Not allowed to look at certain people and what they're doing. Well, DFLOC has summarized it by saying there are no guardrails, there are no regulations, there's no, well, only if we really need to, pinky promises. It is a Fourth Amendment violation, full stop. And they have to come down. They're absolutely right. There is no reform of this. It has to be banned. And again, there's only one group that you see there in New York City that's not surrounded by Flock cameras. It's the synagogues that are there. The ones that you're not allowed to talk about, the ones you're not allowed to look at. But I said earlier, I think war is coming to America. And I think Trump thinks that as well. I think he's doing his best to make it happen, frankly. Trump is now saying the White House needs to have the ballroom because it is a military complex. He's making this argument as a court has blocked his ballroom. He says, quote, we desperately need national security structure. And it's desperately needed there. And it's not just about entertaining VIP guests. The president and his deputies have lately focused on a different argument. It is crucial for national security. And again, when we look at this, the blanket, I can't tell you anything about this. Don't look at my budget, all the rest of this stuff. The beard of national security seems to always be to do something that is either unpopular or even criminal. But in this particular case, Trump may be telling the truth. He's actually very scared, and he has reason to be. When you look at what is happening in Russia, and we're going to take a look at that, the type of war that could easily come to America is what's happening now in the Russian and Ukraine war. And rather than protecting us, this is not about national security. Trump is provoking these types of attacks that are going to come to America, just like they came to Ukraine and the Russian war. And so rather than protecting us, national security has always been the plan to save themselves and let the rest of us die. And it has always been as part of the national security state that was created after World War II. Truman was very instrumental in doing that. I mean, he created the NSA with an executive order. They had the charter for the CIA. He started using the American military as the global police force and claiming that everything had to be kept secret because of national security. That cancer has metastasized from the top down, and we see what it looks like now. And so this ballroom, in a nutshell, shows us what national security really looks like. It is a bunker wrapped in a Marie Antoinette gilding, right? Is what he's talking about with this ballroom. But we look at what is happening in Russia now.
Trump, the people are starving. Let them have balls.
From the guy who doesn't have any, right? Anyway, the Ukrainian drone situation, we have seen in this Russian war, both the Russians attacking Ukrainian infrastructure, and by that I mean refineries, power stations, and things like that, and the Ukrainians doing the same thing to Russia. Now, Ukraine has taken a new approach, and they're not just going after government infrastructure, they're actually going after retail facilities. Think about that. They want the people to feel the crunch, just like the sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln. Ukraine launched one of its largest kamikaze drone attacks of the war against Russia on Sunday. Russia's defense ministry said that air defenses intercepted 822 Ukrainian drones overnight, including roughly 600 that were launched toward Moscow. This is why Trump wants his bunker ballroom. Ukrainian long-range missiles and drone swarms have targeted high-value military assets in the past, oil and gas infrastructure deep inside Russia. But the latest attacks have been based on logistical networks. They're going after Russia's version of Amazon. It's called Wildberries. And they've taken out 7 out of 10 of Wildberries' largest hubs recently. One of them is 250,000 square meters, which is 2.5 million square feet. They just took that one out. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and we will be right back. Stay with us.
Making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.
Hello, it's me, Volodymyr Zelensky. I'm so tired of wearing these same t-shirts everywhere for years. You'd think with all the billions I've skimmed off America, I could dress better. And I could, if only David Knight would send me one of his beautiful gray MacGuffin hoodies or a new black t-shirt with the MacGuffin logo in blue. But he told me to get lost. Maybe one of you American suckers can buy me some at thedavidknightshow.com. You should be able to buy me several hundred. Those amazing sand-colored microphone hoodies are so beautiful. I'd wear something other than green military cosplay to my various galas and social events. If you want to save on shipping, just put it in the next package of bombs and missiles coming from the USA.
That's right. You can only get those at davidknight.news. You can't get them at Wildberries. You can't get them at Amazon. Perhaps Zelensky's goal is to take out all of the Russian equivalents of Amazon so that everybody has to dress down in his military cosplay like he wears all the time. Nothing allowed but green T-shirts. Well, it is truly amazing the extent at which they are targeting this retail giant, Wildberries, in Russia. The biggest one that they just hit was, again, 250,000 square meters. Well, square meters is roughly about 10 square feet. So we're talking about 2.5 million square feet. In the Moscow region, it employed 13,000 people. They now no longer have jobs. Other people are not able to get the goods, the services, because it set off a massive fire that burned the entire thing down. Excluding that warehouse, Wildberries had 20 facilities and more than 1.2 million square meters, equivalent to over 1/5 of its capacity, that was taken offline by drone attacks. Now they've just added another 250,000 square meters. Wildberries and another Russian e-commerce platform, Ozon, together sell goods and services worth 8.5% of Russia's GDP. They also provide jobs for 4 million people, more than 5% of the country's workforce. So that is what asymmetric warfare looks like. Ask yourself if we are protected against anything like that. Trump is going to protect himself, but he's going to let you, your family, and our infrastructure and our supply chains die. You can already see it in what he is doing, his utter contempt for what he is doing to the price of oil and gas. Yes, I think war is coming to the U.S. But let's take a look at the primary that's going to be happening today. We have today is primary day in Florida, and we have an interesting race that's down there between Randy Fine, who I see as public Zionist enemy number one. He deserves to get the Jonathan Pollard Award. He is a traitor extraordinaire. But before we get to that, we see the guy who is the National Security Minister of Israel. This guy, Ben-Gvir, who is not shy about saying the quiet part out loud. He openly talks about genocide over and over again. He had another one they just came out with. He advocates killing 30 to 40 people in Gaza every night as he's doing a podcast, speaking to an ex-hostage. He said, "It's no secret that I disagree with the prime minister." He said, "I think targeted assassinations should be carried out in Gaza." Well, hey, you've already been targeting children. We've had doctors who have come back and said, yeah, these kids, it's like the snipers have decided it's like a game with them. They decide today we're going to shoot them in the right shoulder. And he said, I see all these kids coming in with the same wound in the same place. They know exactly what they're doing. This is not accidental. This is deliberate. It is a game for them. Targeted assassination of children. But of course, targeted assassinations are the preferred Zionist war tactic, aren't they? He said they should be carried out in Gaza, taking down 30 to 40 every night. He said not just those who pose an immediate threat either, right? There are people out there who are not worthy of life. They should not live. They're not even people. Folks, this is Zionism writ large. Those of us who are not Jews are not worthy of life. How many times do they need to tell us? How many times do they need to say this openly? That everybody that is not part of their club, and it's not even an ethnic club, they lost all of their genealogies when the temple was destroyed. They don't do any DNA testing now. And even if they did, the Ashkenazi Jews are not Semites. And so, and we have a good example of that in terms of their allergy to the olive trees that are so heavily indigenous to that area. Only 1% of the world's population has an allergy to the olive trees, pollen. But the Ashkenazi Jews, put Jews in quotes, 66% of them have an allergy to the olive pollen. So these guys are fake Jews, the ones who say they're Jews, but they're not. They're actually the synagogue of Satan. And over again, they talk about how they want to assassinate people, how other people who are not them are not worthy of life. This is the same playbook that we have seen from every genocidal, every totalitarian government. And it's not just limited to Jews. We have seen this over and over again. But the Jews have learned the lesson well, and they are probably the biggest proponent of this idea right now. Similar statements by Ben-Gvir and other Israeli officials have been presented to the UN's World Court as evidence of genocidal intent. Yes, of course. If you have decided and publicly state that you're going to run every last one of them off of the land that you want, and you don't even consider them, they're not even people, he said, then yes, that is an admission of war crimes, contemptible war crimes. Israel denies that it has committed genocide in Gaza, and yet you even have multiple Jewish organizations say that fits our definition of genocide. Matter of fact, the guy who coined the term genocide was a Jewish historian, sociologist, whatever, and he was referring to what happened in Azerbaijan with the Armenians and the Turks that were there at the time, and that is still going on. And that was a case of genocide. We're going to run all these Christians off because we want to have their land. We're going to run them off or kill them. That is exactly what is going on in Gaza. That is the very definition of genocide. It is identical to what was going on in Armenia. Israel's domestic media has made scarce mention of the statement. They don't even pay attention to it. It's not even extraordinary to them that he would say, yeah, let's kill 30 to 40 people every night. That's not even newsworthy to them. Highlighting how the once fringe ideologies that Ben-Gvir has, the popularity of that is surging. You see, this is not just Netanyahu. This is widely supported by the people in Israel. As a matter of fact, a lot of the problems that they have with Netanyahu is that he's not Ben-Gvir enough. He's not pushing this hard enough. And that's what the people who are threatening his position as prime minister, the people who look like they might unseat him as prime minister, they're even more hardcore than Netanyahu. This is a problem that is shared by the Israeli population at large. Figures like Ben-Gvir have become more popular among Israelis. And as they point out again in this article from AP News, they said, well, since Hamas killed about 1,200 people, look, this is another one of these inflated body counts that they did, just like the 6 million number. They killed a lot of their own people. And I've played the clips for you of the military commander saying that. Yeah, we had, half dozen people or a dozen people or whatever in this house, 13, 20 people. Yeah, we took it out because there was somebody that we needed to get here. So we just killed all those Jews, right? And you take a look at the highway that was littered and packed with cars that were burned to a crisp and shot up. The people coming across from Gaza, the Hamas people, did not have that kind of firepower. That kind of firepower only belonged to the Israeli military. They killed their own people. Then they put that body count out there as justification to kill everybody in Gaza. So Ben-Gvir is now one of the most influential people in the country because the country wants this. This is what the people want. And I've said many times, I said, I was reluctant to criticize the people of Israel because I understand that there's ultra-Orthodox Jews that are there that don't support this type of thing. And they don't even support the state of Israel. And when I look at our government, don't think for a minute that I support anything that Trump is doing or anything the Democrats want to do. I absolutely disavow the American government at this point. It has nothing to do with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, any of the principles that this country was founded on. It is a criminal terrorist organization, not just Israel, the U.S. government. And they should be joined together, as a matter of fact. They belong to each other. They operate the same way and have the same purpose. And so I will many times say, well, I'm not going to blame Jews because of the criminal Israeli government, because I don't want to be thrown into the same hopper that the American government is there. But if you look at what the Israeli people are, where they are in terms of popularity polls, they embrace this. They support this. He has substantial control over key parts of Israel's security apparatus, Ben-Gvir does. And he runs the prisons, and we've seen over and over again, a lot of this stuff is designed for optics. He had the people on his staff, and he were wearing gold lapel pins that were hangman's noose, right? Because he wants to execute prisoners, as many as possible. And he wanted to put crocodile moats around the prisons. That got shut down by the court system. But it's that kind of cartoonish posturing. And quite frankly, it makes him very popular with Israeli people. They like that. He's doing that kind of stuff because he's playing to the mob. He's playing to the street. Just like you've got people in Iran putting out death to America and death to Israel, they're playing to the street. And but they're playing to the people who really want to see that type of thing. And so we've got, on the one hand, we've got the radical jihadis. And then on the other side, we've got the revisionist Zionists, who are every bit as radical. The people who want to have a global government, who want to kill everybody that is not a part of their club, that is not a part of their ethnic identity or their religion. And the Zionists are the same thing as the Islamic jihadis, quite frankly. Ben-Gvir openly advocates mass immigration and expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza. He wants the Jews to take over the areas of Gaza, which is, again, textbook genocide that they're doing. In the same taped appearance, he advocated for mass immigration of Palestinians from Gaza, ethnic cleansing in a word, and the resettlement of Gaza by Israel. And again, this is what Jared Kushner is doing with Netanyahu, saying, yeah, we're not going to leave if there's anybody that still has a gun in Gaza. Well, why are we not allowed to have guns in Gaza, right? They don't have a Second Amendment in Israel, that's for sure. But you don't have a right of self-defense. When you take away the weapons, you don't have a right of self-defense, and that's what they're saying. They're saying that only Israel has a right of self-defense, so therefore we can invade them. 20 years ago, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip, dismantling a block of 21 Jewish settlements that were known as Gush Tataf. He said, I see all of Gaza as ours, said Ben-Gvir in the interview. Settlements not just in Gush Katif, I don't know how you pronounce this anyway, but throughout Gaza, encouraging as much immigration as possible, sending them to their countries and to the territories. No immigration, nothing, just kill them, one by one. So he doesn't even want them to leave. He just wants to be able to kill them in place. And again, even the children, and we've seen that over and over again, because these people, folks, are literally terrorists. Which brings us to Randy Fine, the Jonathan Pollard Award winner. I give him that award. Today, there's a primary. Yeah, we're here with Randy Fine. It's amazing to me that Randy Fine is projecting the stuff that he does onto his opponent, Dan Bilzerian. Now, I don't know Dan Bilzerian. I've seen some of the cases that Anthony Sabatini, who is working with him, have been involved with, and I respect some of the things that I've seen Sabatini do. Bilzerian, I don't know who the guy is. I just know who Randy Fine is.
Dan Bilzerian's a what you might call interesting at best character. He has a long history of gambling and posting pictures online of himself with women in bikinis holding guns.
That's
He's
what I've seen.
Basically an influencer, and I don't really believe he's in this out of any sense of virtue, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. I mean, he kind of looked like an Andrew Tate character, you know.
Very much so.
So it's like, well, no, I'm not saying that I'm going to jump over here and support this guy. However, I would support that over what Randy Fine is, quite frankly. And what I think is interesting, he's run some real hard-hitting ads against Randy Fine, pointing out exactly what Randy Fine is about. And of course, Randy Fine doesn't have a problem pointing out what Randy Fine is about either.
I served with two anti-Semites, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. One we got to quit, and the other, thanks to all of you, we beat. And we're very, very lucky. Whereas Democrats 20 or 30 or 40 years ago had anti-Semitism show up in their party, and they minimized it, and they said it was the fringe, and they didn't deal with it, and it took over their party. The leader of our party said he wasn't going to deal with that. We often say that Donald J. Trump is the greatest friend that Israel's ever had, but that doesn't go far enough. Donald J. Trump is the greatest friend American Jews have ever had because he stands up and he fights for all of us.
He's not a friend to Americans. He doesn't fight for Americans. He fights against Americans. And what is amazing as he stands up and says, we got Thomas Massie out. How much did you spend on Thomas Massie? Was it $20-30 million or something like that? AIPAC and Jewish billionaires together. People who have dual citizenship. Randy Fine has referred Dan Bilzerian and Anthony Sabatini to the FBI for criminal charges. He alleges that they have gotten $1 million from a election spending scheme that involves foreign interference. Wait a minute. This is the guy. Foreign interference? $1 million, not $20-30 million, but $1 million. And to complain about foreign election interference? This guy who is a Zionist getting all this AIPAC money and all this money from Zionist billionaires?
Well, you see, when Israel does it, that's just fine.
That's right. Yeah, you talk about the UK and you see the horrific stuff that is happening there in terms of the government siding with the migrants, saying you're free to stab and beat whatever these various people here, but don't you dare even criticize the migrants that are committing these crimes. We have that same type of double standard. Same type of two-tier system here, and that is with the Zionists being the protected ones. Randy Fine has formally referred primary challenger Dan Bilzerian and Lake County Commissioner Anthony Sabatini and his law firm to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, asking federal authorities to investigate what he alleges is an illegal $1 million campaign spending scheme involving, listen to this, potential foreign interference. Well, we don't have to say that this Zionist money that is represented by AIPAC and all the rest of the stuff, we don't have to say that is potential. That is actual. And so this guy who is the poster child of foreign influence, Randy Fine, has the chutzpah to make that charge against his opponent. The referral marks a significant escalation from earlier this week, when Fine's legal team threatened defamation lawsuits and administrative complaints over the unregistered political group Florida First Action Network. Well, you might want to start with DeSantis, who went to Israel to sign a bill to curtail free speech criticizing the state of Israel. He signed it in Israel, not in Florida. This abomination to the First Amendment. And not only did he go to Israel to sign it, but he handed Netanyahu the pen to commemorate it. Yeah, that part of the Republican Party, DeSantis. In a statement released Friday, Randy Fine claimed that what he described as a, quote, ghost organization, unquote, had raised and spent approximately $1 million over 2 weeks without filing required disclosures with the FEC or state authorities. Listen to what he has to say. For the first time in American history, it appears that foreign actors are directly purchasing campaign advertising. Yeah, not Israel, not AIPAC, right? This is the first time this has ever happened. In an effort to manipulate election results in the United States. The utter hypocrisy of a guy who boasts about spending Massie out of office. And he calls him a foreign citizen, Dan Bilzerian. Well, He does have 3 citizenships. He's got he was born in America in 1980, and then he got a citizenship in Armenia. He was there to stand with the Christians in Nagorno-Karabakh, and that got him in a lot of trouble with the Azerbaijan people. And he also has a citizenship in St. Kitts and Nevis because, again, it is one of these residential ambiguity things, I think. Somebody's got a lot of money like him. You want to have a citizenship in multiple places. This is something Doug Casey has always advocated, and even people like James Davidson, who have advocated, make sure that you've got multiple citizenship in other places if you can afford it. I can't afford it, but if you can, you should do that. I don't hold that against anybody.
I can barely afford this citizenship.
That's right. The taxes keep going up, don't they? But he was there to support Christians being genocided by Muslims. But when you go back and look at interference, let's just talk about what real interference looks like.
Anyone who gets in the way, it doesn't matter where they are, even if they are politicians in the West, they are going to fall. And I said this previously.
Hold on, did you hear what he just said? And remember, he's an Israeli agent. Are you saying Israel will murder politicians in the West? What do you mean the politicians in the West will fall?
Yeah, we will not vote for them anymore.
Oh, no, well, you don't vote for them now. You're not in our country.
We have the right to bring them up and to bring them down.
Who is we, and how are you bringing down politicians in the West if they dare to defy Israel?
He just smiles with this cat-like grin, Who are you to vote them out? Well, you talk about foreign interference. How about a Mossad agent who openly says that kind of stuff on TV? In the same way, Jonathan Pollard openly talks about nuclear blackmail of the U.S. to get weapons in 1973. And what we got in exchange for that was a 1973 oil embargo. Just like after we do the bidding of Netanyahu, we get the Trump oil embargo of 2026. And it doesn't just stop there. This is a person at Oracle, high-ranking official, I forget exactly, which is like CEO or COO or something like that, of Oracle, talking about how they are going to punish anybody that doesn't support Israel.
You hit our website in an Arab country, and you saw your entire screen filled with an Israeli flag, which said, not only we stand with Israel, we stand with our employees in Israel, we stand with the people of Israel, we stand with the military establishment of Israel. There's a few things that we did that I really can't talk about, to be honest, because to advance the agenda for the Israeli military.
In other words, it's criminal.
But our teams did a lot. We have some really profoundly scary technology at Oracle, and we wanted to make sure that it was available for the effort. Let's just say that. Okay?
No, let's just say that.
Kiryat. And I go in and I meet with everyone you'd imagine I meet with. And on my way out, I run into, 5 of my team who are all in uniform working. And to be honest with you, it's like my proudest moment.
Her proudest moment. That is Sarah Katz. She is the executive chair of Oracle. And of course, Larry Ellison, Trump's right-hand man that he's trying to give control of all media to, is a hardcore Zionist himself. Yeah, we're doing some very scary things with technology, things that I can't tell you about. Why? Well, because they're illegal, right? And I've got people in uniform. What uniform are they in? You think they're in the Israeli uniform? You think they're in the American uniform? She would have said that. That's not an issue. But they're in the Israeli uniform. So talk about foreign interference, Randy Fine. Give me a break. And when you look at Trump and anti-Semitism, here is his anti-Semitism chief, Leo Terrell, talking about how the First Amendment needs to be gutted. But of course, telling you that he is a First Amendment supporter, just like the left will tell you, oh, I really support the Second Amendment as they're putting in gun control legislation.
Where have you found the most pungent examples of anti-Semitism across the U.S. so far?
Everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, we focus on the big cities, but it's in the small cities. It's in the South. It's in the North. It's in the East, in the West. How do I know that? Because my phone never stops ringing. Complaints all over the country of anti-Semitism. And the biggest problem, which I think is our next issue, the local level.
We've got to control speech everywhere. Don't worry about those flock cameras. Don't worry about AI surveillance centers. Yeah, they want to control everything about you, especially your speech, your criticism of a foreign government. They say that is anti-Semitism. Well, we just saw the Catholic Church, the America's Catholic bishops, they just put in a Jewish woman who rejects Christ. She rejects Christianity. Why did they put her in? Well, they put her in there to make sure that she's going to remove all anti-Semitic interpretations from the Bible. It's kind of interesting because, the Catholics have not bought into this dispensationalism. They've not bought into this idolatry of Israel. They've not bought into this lie about Judeo-Christianity. But they put her in, and it only took her 2 days to do this.
As Catholics, we are called to walk in the truth, and so to reject the conspiracies and lies that lead to harassment and even violence against our Jewish brothers and sisters. There is a strong connection between religious freedom and working to counter anti-Semitism.
Notice the same playbook that they use for trannies. If you criticize trannies, if you even say that they're not what they claim to be, right? Just like with Israel, then you are engendering hate and violence. Your speech is now violence. That's the same plan. And where did that plan for LGBT stuff come from? It came from leftist Jews as well. So now they're running this same plan against us. Here, however, is Chuck Baldwin. And all this talk in Christian circles about, you believe in replacement theology. He said, no, I believe in fulfillment technology. That's right. Christ fulfilled the Old Testament.
I do not believe in replacement theology. Nothing can replace Old Covenant Israel. Who would want to? I believe in fulfillment theology, that the law and the prophets were all fulfilled in Jesus Christ. So when they say, the Israelis are God's chosen people, they are Christ deniers. They are new covenant deniers. They are denying what Jesus said he came to do, to fulfill the old covenant law.
Yeah, so let's not talk about Judeo-Christianity. That is just the biggest oxymoron I have ever seen in my life. What fellowship do Christians have religiously with somebody who says that that Jesus is not the Christ? And why would we want to go back to Mount Sinai? He took away the law. He took away the condemnation of the law. That's the mission of Christ and what he accomplished on the cross. But they deny all of that. People like Huckabee, people like Ted Cruz are Christ deniers. They are Judaizers. Patty Wack says, I'm sure they'll pass a law that's setting to the terror of the people to deal with the guy blocking that camera. Yeah, I'm sure they will. Ibu says, David, how did Flock know they were going to sell 100,000 of those? This is an orchestrated effort. How did they know every county in the country would buy their product? Well, they know because the federal government wants them to do that. And Trump has talked about how it's going to make you really wealthy. You're going to get some federal subsidies if you buy this kind of stuff. That's why Massey's approach to say, if you buy this as a city or as a police department, we're going to take federal money away from you. Folks, the law is gone in America. The only thing that rules is money, and they rule us with bribes and with blackmail. Thank you for joining us. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at thedavidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. TheDavidKnightShow.com.